We're going to continue our discussion on fractions today by spending some time thinking of a visual model of a fraction. So let's review. Remember, the numerator, say it with me, numerator, is the number on top of the fraction, and the denominator, say it with me, denominator is the number on the bottom. Do you remember my trick for remembering that the denominator is on the bottom? I say denominator down. Okay, here are the directions. Tell whether the arrow is pointing to the numerator or the denominator. So as I go through, I want you to quiz yourself at home and practice saying the words. So the first fraction is 3/8. The arrow is pointing to the denominator. Okay, the next one is 7/20. The arrow is pointing to the numerator. The next one, 3/6. The arrow is pointing to the numerator. And the last one, 6/18. The arrow is pointing to the denominator. How'd you do on that quiz? Think about how many you got, and then otherwise maybe write yourself a little note. You could give yourself 100% if you got them all, or you could write yourself a note for how you're going to remember those two important pieces of math vocabulary. Let's do this next part. Tell what fraction of each shape is shaded. I want you to pause the video and try these on your own. Play it back when you're ready to see the answers. Put up the answers quickly. If you're playing back, you've already done this, and you should have gotten 3/4. Then there are 8 total pieces, and how many of them are shaded? 5/8 in that one, and here, this one's the easier one to count, 1/2. So remember, we can read fractions in different ways too. I'm going to look at letter B for a second. I could read this as 5/8, or I could read it as, do you remember the other ways we talked about? 5/8, or I could even read it as 5 divided by 8, because that's all a fraction's doing. It's dividing up and splitting it into equal parts. Okay, let's do a few more like this. So I'll flip my slide. Please pause the video and try these ones out on your own. Sometimes the shadings are separated a little bit. Don't let that throw you off. You're still thinking how many pieces are in the whole, and then that goes in your denominator. How many pieces are shaded, that goes in your numerator. Try these ones out and play the video back when you're ready to see the answers. Time to check your work. If you're at home after you read each one, or if you're in school after you read each one, just give a little woohoo if you got it correctly. 2/5, then 3/6, 5/6, 4/9, 1/6. And this one, letter I, was kind of interesting because the whole thing is shaded. But as a fraction, we would write that as 2/2. But you're probably saying, hey, that's just the same thing as 1, right? So if I got it 1, did I get it correct? Yes, you did. But the directions had wanted a fraction. So in that sense, we do want you to write it as a fraction instead of as a whole number. But these are equal. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how two fractions can be equal even though they look a little bit different or have a different numerator or a different denominator. So let's talk about that a little bit more on this next page. Equivalent fractions. What is the root word you hear in the word equivalent? You might be shouting out equal. And here is a visual representation. So this was showing 1 out of 2 pieces shaded, 1/2. This was showing 2 out of 4 pieces shaded, 2/4. This was showing 4, oops, that should be out of 8 pieces, right? I actually didn't do these ones all the way. These ones should have had lines to be split into the total number of equal pieces. Sorry about that. Okay, but you see, what do you notice about the amount shaded in each picture? It's the same, right? And so the way we represent that mathematically is that they are equal. So you know that 1/2 is equal to 2/4 is equal to 4/8, and we're proving it with this visual model. So that's what you're going to practice today, finding equivalent fractions using a visual model, and you're going to do that practice on IXL. So you will go in a Chrome browser to IXL.com. Then type in your username and password. Your teacher should have given it to you, but in general, it's just your first name, last name without a period, and then 2025. So if it were, let's think of, I could use someone in my class. Whose desk am I looking at? I'm looking at Sophia's desk. So hers would be Sophia Filato 2025. So yours, first name, last name, no period, 2025. And then your password's your usual SHS, 4 numbers, #, except this time it's a lowercase s. Okay, so you'll sign in. And then once you're signed in, mine might look a little different because I'm a teacher and yours is a student, but the steps are still the same. Go to learning right here. And then once you're in learning, go to skill plans and pay attention to this because this is such a useful resource to have. Once you're in skill plans, you're going to just select your book, Everyday Mathematics for 4th grade. And look, it has each unit of your book. And if we go to a specific unit, like we're in unit 3 right now, it brings up for each lesson clickable IXL skills you can practice. So today we're talking about 3.2, fractions, circles, and equivalence. So that's what I want you to click on for your practice. And then get into here. I want you to spend 5 minutes of dedicated practice time. So if you're really focused, then the time elapsed over here will show 5 minutes when you're up. That doesn't mean 30 seconds, go walk over, get a snack, and then come back. It's got to be 5 minutes of really focused practice time, okay? And you're going to use the models to complete the equivalent fraction sentence. The colored pieces in each model show parts of the whole. So in this one, we see 2/6. In this one, we see 1/3. So you would fill out that denominator. And the thing, make sure when you're practicing, you're not rushing to see how many questions you can answer. I want you really spending time to study the visual models so that this can sink into your head, this knowledge of equivalent fractions. So in this case, 1/2. Now I need to fill out the numerator, 2/4. Sometimes they're going to leave the numerator and the denominator blank for you. And actually, I just want to show you, in case you get one wrong, the beauty of IXL, which you should already know by now, is it explains it to you. So if you get one wrong, don't just click onto the next one. You need to stop and read the explanation. That's how we learn, is by carefully taking in all the information. Then once you've really read the explanation, it makes sense, then you say got it, and you move on. So remember, 5 solid minutes of practice time focused on fractions. That's catchy to say, focused on the fractions. And then you'll read the directions in the seesaw assignment. It will tell you to let your teacher know what your SMART score was down here after these 5 minutes. In general, it's a good idea over time to try to get your SMART score up over 90. So you might not get there today, that's okay, but you can always come back to these skill plans and keep practicing in them. Like I could come back to that skill later another day. IXL is such a great tool we have, and I love especially these skill plans because it matches up so perfectly with what you're already studying in class. Have fun.